Well, hello there. I'm attorney Aiden Durham. You're watching All Up in Your Business. As we go into yet another new year, perhaps you've got some pretty cool plans. Maybe, let's say, to start your own business, or maybe you want to level up your side hustle. Either way, it may be in your mind to start an LLC in this upcoming year. If that's the case, then you are in the right place, because I'm going to walk you through step by step exactly how you can go about starting an LLC for your new or existing business. Before we get into all of that though, I would like to give a big thank you to our friends over at ZenBusiness for partnering with us for this episode. I'm going to talk about ZenBusiness in a few minutes, but in the meantime, you can learn more and check them out by using the affiliate link down in the description. And yes, I am a lawyer, but I am not your lawyer. So the stuff I talk about in this video is not a substitute for actual legal advice. If you need help with any legal situation, you should consult with a lawyer who's licensed in your state. All right, now that that's all out of the way, let's start with some of the basics. I know some of you might hate the basics. I love the basics. Like, what is an LLC? LLC stands for Limited Liability Company. It's kind of a nice little mix of a corporation and a sole proprietorship. You get some of the benefits of a corporation, like separateness between the owners, the members of the LLC, and the business, the LLC itself. And the big benefit of that separation is that the members aren't legally responsible or liable for the actions of the LLC. If the LLC is sued, it's a distinct legal entity from the owners or the members. So it's the LLC getting sued. It's the LLC that's on the hook and not the individual members or owners. But at the same time, a corporation has a lot of rules that go along with it, extra tax requirements, stuff like that. So you also get some of the flexibility and benefits that come along with acting like a sole proprietorship. A lot of flexibility and ease in management, not a whole lot of requirements for, let's say, annual meetings of shareholders. There isn't a separate corporate tax like there is with a corporation. So you get a lot of the benefits like liability protection with a lot of the flexibility and ease. That gives you the LLC. Who might want to consider forming an LLC? That's a great question. I think for the most part, LLCs are a good option for most business owners or most aspiring business owners. And this includes freelancers and people with side hustles. You don't have to have a full-blown, business to benefit from an LLC. There's usually very little drawback to forming and operating your business as an LLC. The cost varies from state to state and the specific requirements are different in each state, but for the most part, it's relatively inexpensive. It's not super crazy expensive to form and maintain an LLC. And like I mentioned previously, there isn't a ton of ongoing requirements. There are some, but there's not a ton. So usually the benefits outweigh whatever the drawbacks might be, usually. Of course, if you're not sure, it's best to consult with an attorney. An LLC isn't the best option for everybody, but it's a good option for most. When it comes to forming the LLC, all the steps involved, of course, no big surprise, I recommend working with an attorney to do this. But I know that's not always a realistic option for everyone. So if you can't or don't want to work with an attorney, the next best option, in my opinion, is going to be using a trusted service like ZenBusiness. ZenBusiness is an easy, all-in-one platform that gives small business owners everything they need to start and grow and run their business. ZenBusiness handles the heavy lifting of forming the business so you can focus on the important things like, building the business of your dreams. There are a few reasons I'm a big fan of ZenBusiness in particular. First, they make it really easy. They make it easy to form your business. And who doesn't love that? You don't need to be a lawyer like me or spend hours researching. They're gonna guide you through every step of the process. You just answer a few simple questions and let ZenBusiness handle the rest. And then they're not gonna leave you hanging after the business has been formed. Running Starting a business isn't just about getting it started. You have to stay on top of the legal things to keep the LLC, the business, compliant and stay protected. ZenBusiness offers reliable registered agent services, so you can rest assured that you will never miss an important legal document. They can help you with preparing an operating agreement and applying for an EIN. More on all of those things in a minute. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about what those are. They even offer a worry-free compliance service to remind you of important filing deadlines so you never miss one and your business can stay in good standing. Best of all, in my opinion, because I know most of us are on kind of a tight budget when we're starting a business, is ZenBusiness's transparent and affordable pricing. ZenBusiness has some of the most competitive pricing out there. In fact, their starter package starts at $0 plus state filing fees. You really can't avoid that. But their starter package starts at $0, so it really is accessible at any budget. ZenBusiness has clear, upfront pricing, so you know exactly what you're going to be paying for, and you're not going to have to worry about surprise or hidden fees, which I love. Starting a business can be very challenging. Take it from me, I've done a lot of them, but ZenBusiness makes it so much easier than just doing it yourself. So if you're ready to take that next big step, check out my affiliate link down in the description to get started with ZenBusiness. There are a couple of things we need to consider when we're thinking about forming an LLC. The first is going to be, which state are we going to do this thing in? LLCs are formed at the state level. It's a state recognized entity. And so you can form an LLC in any state. There are some states that are particularly popular for forming businesses in: Delaware, Wyoming, Nevada. So you may be considering forming an LLC in one of those states, and there's some legitimacy to it. Of course, this isn't legal advice. Everybody's situation is different, so this doesn't apply specifically to you, but generally, in my opinion, most folks are going to be best off forming the LLC in the state that you live in, the state that you consider home. Why is this exactly? It complicates some things. And a lot of the benefits that people think they're getting by forming an LLC in another state usually don't apply. Simply put. I can go into that in more detail in another video. I have some other older videos that I address that as well, but just take my word for it for now. What about if you don't live in the United States? If you're not a US resident, there are a lot of folks in other countries that form LLCs or companies in the US because they want to do business in the US. For those people, states like Delaware, Wyoming, Nevada might make sense. There isn't necessarily that drawback of, I live in this state, I'm forming in another state. I am of the opinion, if you are not in the US, if you're not a US resident, go with the state that's going to be the cheapest and the easiest to deal with. I don't know how much each state costs. The fees and the ongoing fees and stuff vary from state to state. There are 50 to choose from. I'm not familiar with all 50, but I'll tell you, and I might be a little biased because I'm licensed in Colorado. I deal with Colorado businesses all the time, but Colorado is actually very inexpensive to form a business. And there's a lot of benefits to Colorado. It's $50 to file the articles of organization to form the LLC. The annual fee to keep the LLC in compliance is $25. It used to be $10 a year. They just raised it to $25. Colorado, you can have an address anywhere and still form an LLC in Colorado. They don't require that you have a Colorado address as your business address. That's not the case in some states like California. You have to have a California business address. Anyway, my little plug for Colorado, I guess. But again, if you're not in the US, figure out which state's going to be the cheapest for you. That's usually the best, in my opinion. All right, so if we'd figured out what state we're going to be dealing with, the next thing to decide is, what am I going to name this thing? You need a name for your LLC, of course. The two kind of general rules are, it needs to be unique and it needs to have some designator, some indication that it's an LLC. So unique means it can't be exactly the same as another LLC that's registered with that same state. You can have an LLC that's named the same as an LLC that's registered in a different state. that's not a problem. It might raise other potential issues like trademark issues that's outside the scope of this video, but it can't be exactly the same as an LLC that's already registered in your state. And again, it needs some designation that it's an LLC. The most common is the abbreviation LLC. Put that after whatever your business name is. You can also use LTD, like limited. You can write out limited liability company. So my law firm name is 180 Law Co. LLC. I could be 180 Law Co. Limited Liability Company, 180 Law Co. Limited. As long as there's some designator of an LLC, you're going to be good to go. Why is this? In case you're wondering, that's a great question. It's because the people we're dealing with, our customers, our vendors, our suppliers, people who are dealing with the LLC, they need to know that they are dealing with a limited liability company, just for kind of legal reasons. And so that's why these states have the requirement that your name needs to include LLC or something along those lines in it. A good resource to find out if the name you want is available. Most, if not all states, have some kind of name availability check tool. So you can type in the name you're thinking about and it will tell you if it's available or not. You also have the option in most states, I believe, to reserve a name in advance if you want. So if you have the name in mind, but you're not quite ready to pull the trigger yet, you can reserve the name so it won't get like taken or filed by somebody else before you get around to actually forming the LLC. Okay, now that we know where we're forming the LLC and what the LLC is going to be called, the next steps are going to be actually doing the thing. Let's get this LLC formed. What we're going to need to do is now file a document with the state that we've decided to form in. In many states, not all states, in many states this document is called the Articles of Organization. Sometimes it's called a Certificate of Formation, something like that, but there's going to be a document that we're going to have to file, usually the Articles of Organization, that we file with the Secretary of State or the business office in our state. Exactly what's included, what we have to put on the Articles of Organization, again, it varies by state to state. We're usually going to have to include the name of the LLC. Good thing we already covered that. We're going to have to provide an address for the LLC. We might have to include the name and address of maybe the people, the members who are forming the LLC. That's not needed in every state. Again, each state's different. We're going to have to indicate how the LLC is going to be managed, if it's going to be member managed or manager managed. Like I mentioned, the owners of the LLC are called the members. In a member managed LLC, the members are the ones who manage the day-to-day operations and they are the agents of the LLC. They can make legally binding decisions. They can act on behalf of the LLC. In a manager managed LLC, the members will elect managers, one or more managers who will, run the overall operations of the LLC, and those managers will be agents for the LLC and can make legally binding decisions on behalf of the LLC. And the members will typically only be responsible for big decision making. Usually, not always, usually with single member LLCs, so where there's just one person, one owner involved. Member managed makes the most sense. Manager managed is usually best when there's going to be owners involved who don't really want to play an active role in the business. They don't want to do anything in the business. They just have an ownership interest in it. Then manager managed usually makes sense. If you're not sure if you should go member managed or manager managed, you might want to dig into it a little bit more. Of course, consult with an attorney if you aren't sure what to do. We are also going to have to indicate on the Articles of Organization a registered agent for the LLC. Now, what is a registered agent? A registered agent is a person or entity who is designated to receive service of process on behalf of the LLC. That's their kind of official title and role. The registered agent basically is who receives important legal documents for the LLC. If the LLC is sued, the party that's suing the LLC has to serve the LLC with summons and complaint court paperwork. And they can do this by serving the registered agent. So the registered agent is the one that will accept that service of process, and the registered agent will also typically be the one that receives other important legal notices. In most states, the only requirements for a registered agent is that they are over the age of 18 and that they consent to being the registered agent. You, as the owner, the member of the LLC, can act as your own registered agent. You can be the registered agent for your own LLC. Or you can utilize a registered agent service, a registered agent company. Sometimes lawyers will act as registered agents for their clients. Sometimes accountants do it as well. But I like these registered agent services because they are usually really inexpensive and just generally easy to use. Of course, ZenBusiness is a great option for registered agent services if you don't want to do it yourself. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with being the registered agent for your LLC, but it's just not always ideal, especially if you're working from home or if you have like a spouse or kids or roommates. Let's say the LLC is sued. The person who's serving the paperwork, they're going to be knocking on your front door. Maybe your spouse or your roommate or your kid answers the front door, or maybe you're not there. Maybe you're not home when someone comes to serve you and you miss that important legal document. Just the fact that you weren't home, that doesn't get you out of trouble if you miss deadlines for these, if you're getting sued or something. That's not an excuse. So you want to make sure there's going to be someone there to accept this important legal stuff. And using a registered agent service like ZenBusiness is the easiest way to do that. So all of that stuff is going to go on the articles of organization or the certificate of formation. We're going to submit it to the state. We're going to pay a filing fee. Exactly how much that is, it depends. And then depending on how quickly the state moves, now our LLC is formed. Colorado is pretty much instantaneous and it's all electronic. As soon as you hit submit on the articles of organization, the LLC is formed. Some states take a little bit longer. There's more of a review process. But once that's all done, congratulations. Your LLC now exists. You are the proud owner member of a limited liability company. Is your job done there? No, it is not, my friend. There is still more to do. And one of those more to do things is creating an operating agreement. What is an operating agreement? It's the internal governing document for the LLC. It's kind of like the guidebook, the playbook for the LLC. How are we going to run this thing? How does this thing work? That's what the operating agreement does. It's going to describe, who owns the LLC, how are decisions going to be made in the LLC? If there are multiple members, multiple owners, how are votes going to be held? How do we distribute money to the members? How do the members make money, earn money off of this thing? What happens if a member dies? What happens if the members disagree? All of that stuff typically is going to be laid out in the operating agreement. The operating agreement is important for a few reasons. Number one, it might be required. Some, not all, some states require that an LLC have an operating agreement. But even if it's not legally required, it is still a good idea. If there are multiple members in the LLC, an operating agreement is imperative because it is going to let everyone know how this LLC is going to be run. It's going to help to avoid problems, disagreements, disputes between the members, and it's going to tell us what do we do if there is a problem. It helps to prevent small issues from becoming much, much bigger issues. But even with a single member LLC, you might think it's weird to have an operating agreement when I'm the only member. I'm the only person who makes decisions. I'm not going to break up with myself. But even in that case, the operating agreement is important because this goes back to the limited liability part, that liability protection that we get from the LLC. That isn't a set in stone thing that always exists. We have to respect the form of the LLC. We have to respect the LLC and treat it like it's a separate entity. And in exchange, we get that liability protection. Part of that respect and treating it like it's a separate entity is going through some of these corporate formalities, like an operating agreement. A multi-member LLC would have an operating agreement. Just because you're a single member LLC, that doesn't mean you get out of that requirement, that formality. Of course, ZenBusiness can help with getting that operating agreement. This is usually fine for single member LLCs. I almost always recommend to my clients, if you have multiple members in the LLC, it's a good idea to at least consult with a lawyer to make sure the operating agreement has everything we want it to have in there, and then it properly, is drafted to suit your situation. At the very least, maybe have a lawyer review it. So operating agreement, check, we've got that out of the way. The next thing you're going to need to do, potentially, most likely, is apply for an EIN, an employer identification number, a tax ID number. This is basically like the Social Security number for your LLC. This can be done through the IRS's website. It's free to apply and to get it through the IRS. Of course, ZenBusiness, if you're using one of their packages, their services, they might do it for you as well. Make that little step a little bit easier for you. Take something else off of your plate. For a single member LLC, technically speaking, the EIN isn't required. The IRS doesn't require that a single member LLC have an EIN, but it basically is needed if you are going to go open a business bank account for the LLC, which you're going to need to do. Most, if not all, banks are going to want the LLC to have an EIN. And then also makes things easier for tax filing purposes and other tax related stuff. So even for single member LLCs where it may not technically be required, you still usually do need an EIN. Who is it actually required for? If you have employees in the LLC, even if you're a single member LLC, if you're gonna have employees, you're gonna need an EIN, or if there are multiple members. A multi-member LLC does need an EIN. And then from there, it's really just a matter of keeping up with things in the LLC. Maintaining, filing requirements, staying in good standing and staying compliant. Exactly what's going to have to be done, of course, is different in each state. Most, not all of them, most states have some kind of a regular annual filing requirement. In Colorado, we call it a periodic report that we have to file every year. The filing fee, I think I mentioned this earlier, right now is $25. It used to be $10. But most states are going to have some kind of filing requirement, some kind of an annual fee or an annual franchise tax or something like that. If you don't file those reports, then you risk the LLC becoming delinquent or non-compliant. And you'll usually have to pay a lot more fees, some penalties, and other issues can arise. So stay on top of those dates. Take advantage of something like ZenBusiness's worry-free compliance services so you never miss one of those important filing deadlines. In summary, forming an LLC is a good idea for most small business owners, most entrepreneurs. You're gonna get a lot of benefits and advantages from it. Number one, that personal liability protection. Protect your own personal stuff, your own assets. There's potentially some tax benefits from operating as an LLC as well. And something that I think is nice to have, it makes you look a little bit more official, a little bit more legitimate. It kind of increases your credibility with your customers, your clients, and other parties that you're dealing with. If you need help with any of this, I recommend consulting with a lawyer who is licensed in your state. If a lawyer is outside of the realm of possibility right now, then the next best thing is to use a trusted, reliable service like ZenBusiness. And you can check them out and learn more using the affiliate link down in the description. That's all for this episode, folks. If you learned a thing or two, maybe give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, go ahead and do it now. Why not? What's it gonna hurt? And you could make sure you click that little bell so you get notified when I post a new video. Share this video with all your friends and family. Maybe you have a family member who's considering forming an LLC for their business. Go ahead and send this to them. That's all for this episode, folks. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Aiden Durham, and I'll see you next time.